Chapter 18, Southern Sudan, 2009. Naya waited her turn in line. She was holding a plastic bottle. The well was finally finished. The gravel had been put down to make the foundation. The pump had been installed and the cement had been poured and left to dry. Before the pump was used for the first time, the villagers all gathered around. The leader of the workers brought out a big sign made of blue canvas. The canvas had writing on it. The writing was in English, but the leader spoke to Naya's uncle, and Uncle told everyone what the sign said. In honor of Elm Street School, Uncle said, "This is the name of a school in America. The students at the school raised money for the well to be dug." Uncle held up one end of the sign. The workers held up the other end. Everyone else stood around it. And one of the workers took their picture. The picture would be sent to America would be sent to the American school so that the students there could see the well and the people who were now using it. The villagers all got in a line to wait their turn for water from the well. When Naya reached the head of the line, she smiled shyly at her uncle, who paused in his work for a moment to smile back at her. Then he began moving the pump handle up and down, up and down. The stream of water flowed from the mouth of the pump. Naya held her bottle underneath the pump mouth. The bottle filled up quickly. She stepped aside and let the next person fill a bottle. Then she drank. The water was delicious. It wasn't warm or muddy like the water from the pond. It was cool and clear. Naya stopped drinking and held up the bottle so she could look at it. Funny that something without any color at all could look so nice. She drank a few more sips, then glanced around. Everyone had a bottle or a cup. They were drinking that lovely water, or waiting in line for more, or talking and laughing. It was a celebration. An old granddad standing not far from Naya shook his head. In a loud voice he said, "This is where we used to gather for our bonfire celebrations. I had been sitting on this ground my whole life. And all those years I never knew that I was sitting on top of this good water." Everyone around him laughed. Naya laughed too. In a few more days the school would be finished. Naya and Dep and Akir would all go to school, along with the other children. Next year there would be a marketplace where the villagers could sell and buy vegetables and chickens and their other goods. There was even talk of a clinic someday, a medical clinic, so they wouldn't have to walk so far to get help, as they had when Akira was ill. It was the well that was bringing the village all these good things, but the well was not for their use alone. People would come from miles around to fetch the good, clean water. Naya knew from listening to the grown-ups that the crew leader had made many arrangements concerning the well. No one was ever to be refused water. Some of the villagers would be responsible for maintaining the well. They would be busy with this new work. So the entire village was to help them with their crops and cattle. Other villagers, including Naya's uncle, would resolve any disputes that arose. The well would change their lives in many ways. I will never again have to walk to the pond for water, Naya thought. She wandered around a little, sipping at her cool, fresh drink. Then she caught sight of the crew leader. He was standing by himself, leaning against one of the trucks and watching her uncle work the pump. Dep saw her looking at the man. That man The boss of the workers, Depp said. You know, he is a Dinka. Naya looked at Depp in astonishment. The Dinka and the Noor did not look very different physically. They had to look at the scar patterns on the people's faces to tell the tribes apart. Dinka scar patterns were different from those of the Noor. But the crew leader had no scars on his face. Naya had heard some of the teenage boys talking about and wondering why he had no scars when clearly he was a grown-up man. The leader's assistant was Noor. So were most of the crew. They all had Noor scars. Naya hadn't thought about it much, but she realized now she had always assumed that the leader was Noor too. The Dinka and the Noor were enemies, had been for hundreds of years. Why would a Dinka bring water to us, she wondered aloud. I heard Uncle and Father talking about him, Depp said. He has drilled many wells for his own people. This year, he decided to drill for the Noor as well. Depp had not really answered Naya's question. He probably doesn't know the answer, she thought. But now Naya felt there was something she had to do. She walked over to where the man was standing. He didn't notice her at first, so she waited quietly. Then he saw her. Hello, he said. Shyness flooded through Naya. For a moment, she didn't think she would be able to speak. She looked down at the ground, then at the stream of water still flowing from the pump mouth, and she found her voice. Thank you, she said, and looked up at him bravely. Thank you for bringing the water. The man smiled. What is your name? He asked. I am Naya. I am happy to meet you, Naya, he said. My name is Salva.